Hello, would you like to tell us your name?
Okay, my name is Dr. Anna Mnuskin, and I was born in Moscow, USSR in 1961.
Okay, do you want to describe a regular life in the Soviet Union?
Well, actually, I think that I was lucky because I was born in Moscow, and the life in Moscow was much better than the life in the rest of the Soviet Union. So I will describe the life of sort of a more or less privileged family because we lived in the center of Moscow. I was born on a street which was called Kutuzovsky Prospect, and it was one of the main streets in the center of Moscow, not far from the Kremlin. And actually, the head of the government of the USSR, Leonid Brezhnev, he lived on the same street. So, so that's funny. And actually, yeah, my high school friend, she lived in the same apartment building as he did. So there was always security on the street. So there were basically no crime, and also all the grocery shopping was in our region was much better than in the rest of the city. So I was also lucky because the school which I attended was it was called like a special English school. So we started to study English from the second grade, and there were many kids of Russian officials who attended, not Russian, Soviet officials, uh, Soviet military officials, Soviet government officials who attended the same school. So the teachers were actually very good, and the curriculum of the school was good. And what else? There were also some kids from foreign uh, countries attending the same school. So in my class there were two boys from India, one boy from Finland, one girl from Hungary. So it gave some unique opportunity to speak English and to mix, with people from different backgrounds. But life in the USSR in the 60s and 70s for us was not that bad, especially, my parents and my grandparents, and we lived all together with my grandparents in one apartment. They made, my childhood rather happy. They wanted to, uh, I guess they wanted for me to have happy memories, and I was the only child and the only grandchild. So, so they did everything they could to provide me with everything I needed. And my grandfather was a well-known scientist, historian actually. He was a professor of history, of French history, and he was well known not only in the USSR but in other countries. And there were people from France because he was, he was speaking fluent French. So there were people from France coming to visit him. So there were always some interesting people, coming to visit. So yeah, for me it was quite a happy childhood before everything changed.
So you mentioned that everything changed. So you want to describe a little bit about that? How did things change?
Well, to begin, to begin the story, actually, there were many things which I didn't know because when I was growing up, uh, people just didn't talk about it. But then, so at the time when I was in middle school, I realized actually that things are not that great, and that um, whatever I read in this school textbook of Soviet history is not exactly right. I found out that actually my grandfather spent 18 years in Gulag, in Soviet prison, because it was the time when Stalin was in power, and he was put he was arrested in 1935 and spent 18 years in different prisons and different labor camps. And I didn't know it. And then I found out just by chance. And after that, yes, everything changed for me. And then when I was, a little older, the grandfather began to talk more, and we started. I realized that in the evening, when everybody are going to bed, he is listening to uh, programs from abroad, to BBC program in Russian, and to Voice of America, which was a special program designed for Russian-speaking people, and also a few other programs. And so I learned many things which other people didn't know. Then, well, I graduated from high school. I was already in medical school. Then grandfather died, grandmother also died. I got married rather early. Then I had a child. And then, things were happening in the country. Everything was just crumbling to pieces. And it was really a very difficult time, and we decided to immigrate.
So when did you actually decide to immigrate to the U.S.?
It was, I think it was in 1989. Yes, it was in 1989 when my husband came home and told me that he applied for refugee status at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, and he also put my name there. So I was surprised because I didn't even know that there is a possibility to do that. Then we went for an interview in American embassy. It was, there was a long wait. It was, I think, more than a year, maybe a year and a half. Then at the end of 1989, maybe in 1990, we got this refugee status at the American embassy, and then at the beginning of 1991, we left.
So when you came to America, what was your first impression here?
My first impression, um, well, my first impression was when we were taking. It was actually a very long flight because we boarded the plane in Moscow after a very long wait. It was a sleepless night, and then we were flying first to Ireland, and there was a stop in Shannon Airport, and then we went to Canada, and after that we came to New York. So I was already so exhausted, And my first, I don't know, for whatever reason, I remember the cup of orange juice which they gave me on the flight to from New York to Pittsburgh. And somehow this orange juice was so tasty, so refreshing. And then there were some friends who met us at the Pittsburgh airport. And airport seemed large and so beautiful. And yeah, that was the first impression. And then, yeah, the American cars, they were also so big. I was really impressed. They were, I mean, the friend of us was driving, I think it was an old Buick, but it was like really big. And yeah, it was impressive.
What were some challenges about coming here to America, like culturally maybe, or some
Oh,
other challenges?
of course it was, yeah, of course it was very difficult. I mean, Pittsburgh looked like a charming city, but I mean, we had many problems. We didn't have money. We didn't know our ways about, and we needed some help. You know, we didn't know how to do anything. Uh, we didn't know how to do banking. We didn't know how to do grocery shopping. So we had to learn everything. Uh, the main challenge probably was our daughter because she was 5 at the time, and believe it or not, she didn't want to eat any American food. So it was really challenging because she asked for buckwheat, which we used to have in Russia, and we didn't know where to find it. And then finally, like in a couple weeks, one friend of us told us that there is a Russian shop, Russian like grocery shop where we can buy like Russian food. Uh, but not only that, you know, she didn't understand why people are speaking different language because she did not speak English. Uh, I was speaking English. My husband was more or less speaking English, but she didn't. So when she wanted to play with other kids, they didn't understand her and they didn't want to play with her. She went to school and she once again didn't understand anything. So I guess she had a hard time, and I was really concerned what's going to happen. But then in a few months, she actually picked up the language, and they did a good job at school, trying to teach her and to accommodate and everything.
Okay, so can you describe your first job here?
My first job here, my first job, it was a volunteer job at McGee Women's Hospital. So when I came here, I actually had my medical degree, but I also had a PhD in microbiology. So they let me go to microbiology lab and to see how things are done. So I was working as a volunteer microbiologist at McGee Women's Hospital for a couple months before I found like a real job. And then my first real job was at University of Pittsburgh at the Department of Molecular Genetics.
How have you seen America evolve since you first arrived?
Mm, well, it's a difficult question because I think there are good things and bad things. I think that of course there is a lot of modern technology which did not exist at the time. It was more than 30 years ago when I came to this country. So now, and it was at the University of Pittsburgh when I actually saw the computer for the first time, and they told me that they are going to use it in research, and it was something completely new. But right now, everybody are having computers and everybody are having cell phones and stuff like that. So of course, it's a big change, and technology became such a big part of our life that we cannot even imagine our life without it. But believe it or not, when mm, I started my residency, it was more than 20 years ago. There were a lot of things which were done on paper actually, and we were writing everything by hand. But right now, of course, it's different. In terms of other things, uh, I think I think that uh, what happened during this 30 years, I think people uh, people became, I would say, more disconnected. Maybe it's because we have so many of these social networks, and people are sort of talking on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. I think that mm, people don't spend so much time together as they used to 30 years ago. But I think it's not only in this country, I think it's everywhere. Because when I talk to those friends who stayed in Russia or who actually immigrated to other countries, they say the same thing. Uh, what else? What I don't like is that right now I think that unfortunately our country is more divided than it used to be 30 years ago. I mean, when we came, yeah, there were also people who were Democrats and people who were Republicans, but there were not so, so much. There was not so emotional, and they were not hating each other so much as they do now, because we even had one of our American friends. It was a family when she was actually a Democrat, and the husband was a Republican, and they could discuss all the political matters in a normal way. But right now, right now, I think that would not be possible, and this actually makes me upset, because I think that unfortunately it makes our beautiful country weaker, because when people start, fighting each other, then there are so many other things happening in the world, and there are so many problems that I think that we should find a way to understand each other better. That's it.
Yeah, unless you have anything else to add.
Mm. Well, I think that we're very lucky that we live in this country, especially taking into consideration what's going on in Russia now. And yeah, for the last year, uh, since this awful, stupid, and I don't know, crazy war of aggressive war which Russia started. They invaded Ukraine. It was unbelievable. I was in shock, and yes, and actually right now what's going on in Russia it's just sad. I feel very bad for those people who stayed there and who couldn't leave, for because people have different circumstances. Some people have older parents and they cannot leave them. Some people just don't have money, and they cannot immigrate. So it's a very difficult, it's a very sad situation, and I'm not even I'm not even speaking about Ukrainians, because this is just awful, like millions and millions of refugees, thousands of dead people. So yes, we are very lucky that we are not in Russia right now. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.